Hi, my name is Shannon Robert, and I am on the faculty at Clemson University. I work in the Brooks Center for Performing Arts as a scene design faculty member in the area of theater. I'm here today with Tony Penna, who's also on our faculty. He is our lighting design faculty member in performing arts, and he also works with the College of Engineering in digital production arts. And what Tony has done here is, I think, really amazing. He's basically created a light lab in a room off the back of his garage so that he can teach his students during this COVID-19 time that we're finding ourselves needing to isolate. So what Tony has done is he has monitors here that he can actually work with his students, teach them how to program. He has a board, which is the GeoAt5 board, where he can actually put in and program for his students. They're doing projects where the students are able to work, and Tony is able to show them their work with this miniature light lab. So he's able to film with the webcam and show the students the work that they're creating and what it will do. So the piece that he is going to share with us today is how color works in lighting. He's going to do a little bit of color theory and show how the color and lighting will affect what's happening on actual surfaces. So we're looking at color and pigment and what color and lighting does to that. It's a really fun demonstration, and we wanted to share it with all of you. To give you a little bit of background about Tony and his history, he is a member of USA 829, which is United Scenic Artists, and it is the union that represents all people in the trade of scenery, lighting, and costumes in the professional theater industry. Tony has designed lights for theaters, very prominent theaters in the United States, like Actors Theater of Louisville. He's done their Dracula for the past several years. I think it's over 20 years, I'm not exactly sure. He also works in Hilton Head with Lean Ensemble and Warehouse Theater in Greenville and Milltown Players, which is right around the corner in Pelzer. He's done work in Mill Mountain and the Roanoke area and with Hollins University, with universities across the South. So we're going to talk to Tony a little bit about what he's done here. And thank you. Hi, Tony. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your setup here and how you use it. So what do you call this?
So you could call this a light lab. For artists here, I call this setup over here a color booth. There was a lighting designer named Theodore Fuchs a long time ago who said that every theater should have a color booth, a small, dark light lab where lighting designers can bring materials such as scenic pieces, costumes, and be able to shine lights on them to see how different colors of light affect the appearance of the materials. Because there are some fabrics, some certain colors, if you shine a certain color of light on it, the material loses its color and its vibrance. So that's what I've got going on here. I've got a little light lab set up. There's a webcam positioned right here so that I can broadcast on Zoom what I'm doing in the light lab to my lighting classes, which has been a really great way to teach. It's not ideal, of course, because we're in this pandemic, but because stage lighting is very much a visual art form, it's very important that I be able to demonstrate these principles that we're talking about in our class.
Would you mind showing us a little bit about like what's going on in your monitors?
Sure. This is a, well, first let me start over here. This is the lighting console that we use in the Bellamy Theater at the Brooks Center. It's called a GeoAt5, and this is an industry standard console. You'll see these used in nearly every professional theater. And it's really great to have because we can teach our students to use this technology, which will help them get the jobs that they want when they graduate. The software that's used on this console you can also install on a personal computer. The company makes the software absolutely free because they want you to know how to use their software. So I have the same software installed on my computer. I also have all of my students install it on theirs. The newest version of the software includes a 3D visualization package called Augmented. And that's what you see going on in this panel right here. I have some lights that are hung and focused on our figure. I can select those lights and change their color by using this triangular color space over here. And we can change all of their colors at the same time.
Oh, nice.
And this is actually one of the projects that I'm doing in my lighting classes this week, is talking about color mixing. And I'm going to have the students use this software to experiment with different colors to see how they mix when they land on an actor standing on stage. It's a really great learning tool, and you get to see, it's not a photorealistic image on the screen, but it's a very good approximation for learning.
So so the technology, it's obvious that you're using technology to create art. So this is what you use to do the art that you do. And I'd love to ask you a little bit more about that, because I see an image here from a production that you designed. If you would love to talk about that, that would be excellent.
Sure. Yeah, this image is from the Clemson Players production of As You Like It. And we use, of course, we use a lot of technology to make the colors that you see on the screen. Many of the lights in this image are LED sources. So inside they have red, green, and blue emitters. And depending on the levels of each of those colors, the light can produce a very wide range of color. And if you have a bunch of those lights and they're all at different colors, then you get a very nice mix, like you see on the fabric hanging above the stage.
That's lovely. So let's say there are students at home who are feeling like, oh, I really want to study lighting design and I don't know what to do right now. What can they do to create some projects at home for themselves?
Great. Yes, there are a number of things that you can do. I do these things with my kids. First thing you can do is run to your local store with a mask, of course. Get a relatively inexpensive flashlight, and then your flashlight will be white. But I went into my kitchen and I found some colored plastic lids for some of our lunch containers, and you can shine the light through the colored lid to project colors of light onto a surface.
So like a gel?
Yeah, exactly like a gel. In the world of lighting, we use specialty color filters that we put in our conventional lights that don't have LED color mixing.
I see some on your window behind you.
Yes, exactly. I had to do that because in the afternoon the sun comes in through that window and is very blinding on my desk here. So I put up some blue color filter over the windows there just to cut down on the brightness. And that's sort of a specialty theater material, but you can do your own by finding colored lids, or if you have colored cling wrap, you can use that. Another thing that we have that we like to do is you can go to your local dollar store, and get some of these little finger lights. They come in, I've seen them a lot in red, blue, green, and white. So you can take these little finger lights into a closet or a dark room, shine them on the wall. You can play around with color mixing. For example, you can shine the red and the blue together on the wall and see how they make, how they make another color, or red and green. You can also try shining one of the colors and the white light on the wall to see how the white tints the color coming from the other light. So those are a couple of experiments that you can do relatively cheaply in your own home.
Thank you. And so, curious, so we're talking about color and we're going to look at your demonstration in a little while, but are there particular colors that you try to avoid when you're doing lighting design, and if so, why?
Yes, there are certain colors I try to avoid, but it's different for every show. Because every production has a unique set design, unique costumes. Even when you have different actors, every person has different skin tones. So that's one of the reasons I have the small light lab, is so that I can take those materials into a room and find out which colors of light make the scenery and the costumes look good, and which colors wash out the colors of the paint and the fabrics. So yes, there are colors I try to avoid, but it changes for every show. We don't just walk into the theater and the lights are already set. There's a great deal of preparation and testing and rehearsal that we have to do as we develop a design for a show.
And so a lot of that with placement, for instance, when you're dealing with color and you're dealing with placement, I've heard you talk about photometrics. So there's a great deal of math involved in creating angles, and so that we're getting light to do a certain thing.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's another part of our research, is to think about the theater as a three-dimensional space. Consider where the audience is located, consider where the actors are standing, and it all begins with reading the script and learning the story. And then you can decide if you want to see the actor's entire face or if you only want to see one side of their face. And that will determine where you put your lights in the theater, how they will create, how they will reveal the form of the actors, either more or less, depending on the needs of the play and the needs of a particular scene.
Nice, thank you. So another thing that you were talking about with students some time back that I thought was really interesting is that dye lots in fabric, like blacks, for instance, like the idea of grabbing a tuxedo jacket that might be a different dye lot than the pants, like maybe a red base or a blue base or a green base. Can you talk about what colors do on that? I know we're going to see it later in your lab, but just so people kind of understand how the dye lot in a black can actually change the color.
Yeah, black is made up of a number of different colors. They all mix together to create a color that we observe as being black. But under different colored lights, the specific wavelength of a color of light reacts with certain dyes in the black fabric in different ways. I lit a show one time where the entire floor of the stage was black carpeting. And I had chosen a particular blue gel to use in my lights for a nighttime scene. Well, when we got to that scene and we turned on those blue lights, we discovered that the particular dye of the blue gel made the black carpet turn bright red, just because of how the light interacted with the dyes in the fabric. So on a break, we went around to all of those lights and changed it out for a different blue gel that was in the same range as the original, but had much less red in the gel and more green, and that made the black carpet return to a black appearance.
Thank you, Tony. We're looking forward to seeing what you do with this lab, and thank you for sharing your lab with us. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Here you see a small stage that we use for projects in my lighting class. I have set up an LED bar that has red, blue, and green lights, and I also have a few other lights around the stage. We'll turn those on to help us illustrate color mixing. And I also have an assistant who has graciously agreed to help us today. Now, the reason these lights have red, blue, and green is because those are the primary colors of light. In art class, we learned that the primary colors are red, blue, and yellow, and that's true if you're talking about pigment. But in the world of lighting, our primary colors are red, blue, and green. And the reason for this lies inside our eyes. Our retinas are covered with millions of tiny cells called rods and cones. The rods are what allow us to see in low light, and the cones are what allow us to perceive color. And there's three different kinds of cones. One kind is sensitive to long wavelengths, one is sensitive to short wavelengths, and one is sensitive to medium wavelengths. So that's why the primary colors of light are red, blue, and green. Now, if you mix the primary colors together in pairs, you'll get the secondary colors. Blue and green mix together to make cyan. blue and red mixed together to make magenta, and red and green mixed together to make yellow light. Finally, if you mix all three primary colors together, you get the full visible spectrum of white light. Now I have set up these colored cards on the stage to demonstrate how we see objects in colors, which has to do with reflection. Light bounces off of objects and into our eyes, landing on our retinas. Then our optic nerves send that information to our brains. Under white light, a red object, such as the card in the lower left corner, reflects red wavelengths and absorbs all of the blue and green wavelengths. That's how we perceive it as being red. Under blue light, however, that red card turns black because blue light has no red wavelengths to bounce off the card and into our eyes. The same is true under green light. But if we try yellow light, the red card becomes red again, because yellow light has both red and green wavelengths, so the card absorbs the green wavelengths and reflects the red. Now, for fun, watch how the cards change their appearance as we cycle through red, magenta, blue, cyan, green, and yellow light. So now that you've seen how the color of light can affect the color of objects, let's take a look at how this science is applied in theater lighting. When designing a production, I have to take the color of the scenery, the costumes, and even the actors' skin tones into account. Part of the process of lighting is to take scenic models and costumes into a color booth or lighting lab like this to experiment with various colors of light to see what works and what doesn't. Here we have a scenic model and a costume. If I'm lighting a scene that takes place at night, I'm going to start with blue light for my nighttime look. But you can see what the blue does to the green parts of the dress and the model. They turn dark, dull, and lifeless. Just like the cards, this is because the green materials don't reflect blue light. Those wavelengths are absorbed by the fabric. But if we sneak in some green wavelengths, then the green parts of the dress and the floor reflect the green light and regain their color. And we still have this lovely blue wash to use for our nighttime scene. So that's a quick summary of how we use a color booth to test various colors of light on materials, and a little bit about how we use science and technology in the arts.
So thank you for joining us in Tony Penna's Light Lab. Hope you learned a little bit about mixing color with light. We are going to have some closed captioning at the end of this with a link to a Google folder with a couple of exercises that you can do at home. And if you are interested in learning more about any of this, you can get in touch with us at the Brooks Center for Performing Arts. Thank you, and stay safe and stay well.